I used to think being invisible was the problem. I thought if people would just see me, hear me, acknowledge what I was doing, then it would mean something. Then I would mean something. I spent years performing for an audience that wasn't there, explaining myself to people who weren't listening, defending my choices to individuals who had already made up their minds about me before I even opened my mouth. And the exhausting part wasn't that they didn't care. It was that I kept acting like they did. You know what changed everything for me? It wasn't a moment of inspiration. It wasn't some breakthrough where suddenly I felt confident and powerful and ready to take on the world. It was quieter than that. It was the day I realized that no one is coming to validate what I'm building. No one is going to give me permission to become who I'm supposed to be. No one is sitting around thinking about my potential, my dreams, or whether I'm making the right moves. They're not against me. They're just not thinking about me at all. And that realization didn't crush me. It freed me. Because once you understand that no one cares about you the way you think they do, you stop needing them to. You stop waiting for approval that was never going to come. You stop explaining decisions to people who don't have to live with the consequences. You stop performing. Most people spend their entire lives in a state of emotional dependence. They need to be seen. They need to be heard. They need someone to confirm that what they're doing matters, that their pain is valid, that their progress is real. And because they need it so badly, they never get it. Because needing validation is exactly what makes you invisible. Think about the people you actually respect, not the ones you feel sorry for, not the ones you encourage out of politeness, the ones you genuinely respect. Do they explain themselves to you? Do they need you to understand their choices? Do they react every time someone questions them? No. They move in silence. They build in private. They make decisions and live with them without needing a panel of judges to approve every step. That's not arrogance. That's sovereignty. And sovereignty doesn't announce itself. It doesn't defend itself. It doesn't need to be recognized to exist. You want to know why you feel stuck? Why you feel like you're working hard but not getting anywhere? Why it feels like no one takes you seriously? It's because you're still asking for permission, not with your words. You'd never say it out loud, but with your energy, with the way you look for reactions, with the way you need people to acknowledge your effort before you believe it's real. Every time you explain yourself, you're asking for permission. Every time you defend your choices, you're asking for permission. Every time you need someone to see your progress before it feels legitimate, you're asking for permission. And people can feel that. They can feel the need coming off you. And it makes them pull back. Not because they're cruel, but because desperation, even quiet desperation, makes people uncomfortable. No one respects someone who needs their respect. I know that sounds harsh. I know it feels unfair. But it's true. And once you accept it, once you really accept it, something shifts. You stop explaining. You stop defending. You stop waiting for someone to notice that you're changing. You just change. In silence, without announcement, without validation, without needing anyone to confirm that it's happening. And that's when people start paying attention. Not because you asked them to, but because you stopped asking. There's a specific kind of power that comes from not needing to be understood. From making moves that no one sees coming because you never telegraphed them. From building something in private while everyone else is performing in public. Most people are so busy trying to be seen that they never actually become anything worth seeing. They announce their plans before they've done the work. They celebrate the decision to change before they've changed. They need credit for the intention before they've produced the result. And then they wonder why no one takes them seriously. It's because talk is cheap, intentions are cheap, explanations are cheap. Results are the only currency that matters. And results don't need to be explained. You don't have to tell people you're different. They'll see it, or they won't. Either way, it doesn't change what you are. You don't have to announce that you're done with mediocrity. Your life will announce it for you. You don't have to defend your decisions. Time will prove you right or wrong. And either way, the opinions of people who aren't living your life are irrelevant. This is what most people never figure out. The moment you stop needing validation is the moment you become dangerous. Not dangerous in a reckless way. Dangerous in the sense that you can no longer be controlled by approval. You can no longer be manipulated by the fear of judgment. You can no longer be stopped by the absence of support. Because you've realized something most people never do. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you are. I spent years trying to make people understand why I was making certain choices. Why I was walking away from situations that looked good on paper. Why I was prioritizing things that didn't make sense to anyone else. And every time I tried to explain, I lost a piece of myself. Because explanation is defense, and defense is weakness. Strong people don't defend themselves. They move. They choose. They live with the consequences. And they let their results speak. When you defend yourself, you're giving power to someone else's opinion. You're saying that their doubt matters more than your certainty. You're making their confusion more important than your clarity. And that's how you lose. Not because they beat you, but because you put their voice above your own. The day I stopped explaining myself was the day I started becoming myself. I stopped caring if people understood why I worked the way I did. I stopped needing them to see the vision before it was complete. I stopped defending my pace, my process, my priorities. I just moved. And some people thought I was arrogant. Some people thought I was cold. Some people thought I'd lost my mind. But here's what's interesting. The people who mattered, the people who were actually building something themselves, they didn't need an explanation. They understood immediately. Because they were doing the same thing, moving in silence, building in private, letting results speak. It's a different frequency, and most people aren't on it. Most people are still performing, still explaining, still waiting for someone to see them and tell them it's okay to be great. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't still be listening. Most people would have clicked away by now. Because this isn't comfortable. This isn't hype. This isn't someone telling you that you're already enough, that you just need to believe in yourself, that the world is going to recognize your greatness. This is the truth. And the truth is that the world doesn't care about you. Your coworkers aren't thinking about your dreams. Your friends aren't sitting around hoping you succeed. Your family might love you, but they're not losing sleep over whether you reach your potential. Everyone is dealing with their own life, their own problems, their own fears. And that's not a bad thing. That's freedom. Because if no one is watching, you can stop performing. If no one is expecting anything from you, you can stop trying to meet their expectations. If no one is judging your every move, you can finally make the moves you've been too afraid to make. The weight you've been carrying, that pressure you feel to prove yourself, to justify your existence, to make people see you, it's self-imposed. No one asked you to carry it, and you can put it down anytime you want. But here's the part that most people can't handle. Putting it down means accepting that you might never get the recognition you think you deserve. You might work in silence for years, and no one will know. You might become everything you wanted to be and still not receive the validation you thought would come with it. And you have to be okay with that. Because if you're not, you're still dependent, you're still performing, you're still waiting for someone else to tell you that you matter. Real strength is building something that matters to you, whether anyone else ever sees it or not. Real power is knowing your own value without needing external confirmation. Real sovereignty is moving through life on your own terms, regardless of who understands or who doesn't. Most people will never get there. because most people can't handle being misunderstood. They can't handle being underestimated. They can't handle the loneliness that comes with walking a path no one else can see. But that loneliness is where the power is. That's where you become who you actually are, not who everyone else needs you to be. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt sometimes. There are moments when you'll want someone to see what you're building. Moments when you'll want to explain yourself just so someone understands. But every time you resist that urge, you get stronger. Every time you choose silence over explanation, you reclaim power. Every time you move without needing approval, you become more sovereign. And over time, something happens. You stop caring entirely. Not in a bitter way, not in a resentful way. You just stop caring because you've built something real, something solid, something that exists, whether anyone acknowledges it or not. And that's when you realize that the people who doubted you, the people who didn't see it, the people who questioned every move you made, they were never the problem. You were. Because you gave them power they never asked for. You made their opinions matter when they didn't. You performed for an audience that was never watching in the first place. And the moment you stop performing is the moment you start living. This isn't about becoming cold. It's not about shutting people out or pretending you don't have emotions. It's about understanding that your value doesn't come from being seen. Your strength doesn't come from being understood. Your power doesn't come from being validated. It comes from knowing who you are and moving accordingly, regardless of who's watching. That's the advantage. That's what no one tells you. Being ignored isn't the problem. Being invisible isn't the weakness. It's the position you need to be in to build something real. Because real power is built in private. Real transformation happens in silence. Real strength comes from doing the work when no one is applauding. And the people who understand that, the people who actually live that way, they don't need to be told. They already know. If you're still here, you know too. Maybe you haven't fully accepted it yet. Maybe you're still holding on to the idea that one day people will see you and everything will click into place. But deep down, you know the truth. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to validate you. No one is coming to give you permission to be great. You have to give yourself that permission. And you have to be okay with the fact that most people will never understand why you made the choices you made. They'll never see the work you put in. They'll never know the sacrifices. They'll never understand the discipline it took to stay quiet while everyone else was talking. And that's fine, because you're not doing this for them. You're doing this for you. And the moment you fully internalize that, the moment you stop needing external validation, the moment you accept that being unseen is actually your greatest advantage, that's when everything changes. Not because the world suddenly notices you, but because you stop needing it to. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't have the capacity to understand. You stop defending your choices to people who aren't living with the consequences. You stop performing for an audience that was never really there. And you just move. In silence, with clarity, with absolute certainty that what you're building matters, regardless of who sees it. That's the shift. That's the power. And once you have it, no one can take it from you. Because it's not based on their opinion. It's not dependent on their approval. It's not contingent on their recognition. It's yours. And it always was. You just had to stop giving it away. Most people go their entire lives without realizing this. They spend decades seeking validation from people who can't give it to them. They exhaust themselves trying to be seen by people who aren't looking. And they die having never discovered their actual power. Because their actual power was always in the silence. It was always in the moments when no one was watching. It was always in the decision to move without permission, to build without applause, to become something real without needing anyone to confirm it. That's what sovereignty looks like. That's what internal control feels like. That's what emotional independence creates. And it's available to you right now. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Not when you've figured everything out. Right now. The moment you decide that you don't need anyone's permission to be who you are. The moment you stop explaining yourself. The moment you accept that being unseen is freedom, not punishment. That's when you take your power back. And once you have it, you'll never give it away again. Because you'll realize that the version of you that needed validation was never the real you anyway. It was a performance. And you're done performing. Subscribe if you're done explaining yourself. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for people who already understand. And if you're still here, you understand. You might not be living it yet. You might still be caught in patterns of seeking approval, of needing to be seen, of waiting for someone to give you permission. But you understand. And understanding is the first step. The second step is silence. Not the silence of giving up. Not the silence of hiding. The silence of someone who knows exactly what they're doing and doesn't need to announce it. The silence of someone who's done explaining, done defending, done performing. The silence of someone who's finally become sovereign. That's the work. And no one can do it for you. No one can give you that internal shift. No one can hand you that clarity. No one can make you stop caring what they think. You have to choose it. Every single day, in every moment when you want to explain yourself, you choose silence instead. In every moment when you want validation, you give it to yourself instead. In every moment when you want someone to see you, you remember that being unseen is your advantage. And over time, it becomes natural. Over time, you stop even thinking about it. Over time, you become the person who moves through life with quiet authority, absolute emotional control, and a level of internal power that most people will never understand. Not because you're better than them, but because you stopped needing them to understand, and that made all the difference. There's a specific moment that happens when you fully step into this. It's not dramatic, it's not emotional, it's not some big breakthrough where everything suddenly makes sense. It's quieter than that. It's the moment when someone questions you, and instead of defending yourself, you just look at them. Not with anger, not with defensiveness, not with the need to make them understand. Just a calm, steady look that says, I don't owe you an explanation. And they feel it. They feel the shift in you. They feel that they no longer have access to you the way they used to. And some of them won't like it. Some of them will say you've changed. Some of them will accuse you of being cold, distant, arrogant. Let them. Because what they're really saying is, I can't control you anymore. I can't manipulate you with my opinion anymore. I can't make you doubt yourself anymore. And that terrifies them. Because people who are still dependent on validation get uncomfortable around people who aren't. Your independence reminds them of their dependence. Your silence reminds them of their need to be heard. Your sovereignty reminds them that they're still asking for permission. And instead of doing the work themselves, they'll try to pull you back down. They'll question your choices. They'll doubt your path. They'll make you feel like you're wrong for not needing them the way you used to. But you're not wrong. You're just done. Done explaining. Done defending. Done shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. And that's not something you need to justify. Real power doesn't justify itself. It just exists. And the people who are supposed to be in your life, the people who are operating on the same frequency, they won't need an explanation. They'll see what you're doing, and they'll respect it. Not because you demanded their respect, but because respect is the natural response to sovereignty. People respect what they can't control. They respect what doesn't need them. They respect what moves with certainty, regardless of their opinion. And the moment you become that, everything changes. Not externally. The world doesn't suddenly roll out a red carpet for you. People don't suddenly start celebrating your every move. But internally, everything changes. Because you're no longer at the mercy of other people's perceptions. You're no longer waiting for validation that may never come. You're no longer explaining yourself to people who aren't capable of understanding. You're just free. Free to move. Free to choose. Free to become exactly who you're supposed to be without needing anyone's permission. And that freedom is worth more than any amount of recognition. It's worth more than applause, more than approval, more than being seen by people who don't actually matter. Because freedom is the only thing that's real. Everything else is performance, and you're done performing. I know some of you are still holding on, still hoping that one day people will see you and everything will click, still believing that recognition is coming, that your moment is coming, that eventually people will understand. And maybe they will, but what if they don't? What if you do everything right, build everything you wanted to build, become everything you wanted to become, and no one ever gives you the recognition you think you deserve? What then? Does your life still matter? Does your work still count? Does your transformation still mean something? If the answer is no, you're still dependent. If the answer is yes, you're free. And freedom is the only thing worth building toward. Not recognition, not validation, not being seen. Freedom. The freedom to know your own value without needing anyone else to confirm it. The freedom to move through life on your own terms, regardless of who understands. The freedom to be misunderstood, underestimated, ignored, and still be exactly who you are. That's the advantage. That's what no one tells you. Being invisible gives you freedom that being seen never could. Because when you're seen, you become a target. You become someone people have opinions about. You become someone people try to control, manipulate, or tear down. But when you're invisible, you're free. Free to build without interference. Free to move without resistance. Free to become without judgment. And by the time people see you, it's too late. You're already something they can't touch. Not because you're untouchable, but because you don't need their touch to validate your existence. You exist whether they see you or not. You matter whether they acknowledge it or not. You're powerful whether they recognize it or not. And that's the level of internal strength most people spend their entire lives searching for and never find. Because they're looking externally. They're waiting for someone to give it to them. But no one can give you internal strength. You have to build it yourself. In silence, in moments when no one is watching, in decisions that no one will ever know about. That's where real power comes from. Not from being seen, from knowing you don't need to be. I want you to think about something for a second. Think about all the times you explained yourself and it didn't change anything. Think about all the times you defended your choices and people still doubted you. Think about all the times you tried to make someone understand and they never did. All that energy, all that emotion, all that time spent trying to convince people who were never going to be convinced. What if you had put that energy into the work instead? What if you had used that time to build instead of explain? What if you had channeled that emotion into progress instead of defense? Where would you be right now? That's the cost of needing validation. It's not just that you don't get it. It's that seeking it drains you of the energy you need to become the person who doesn't need it anymore. Every explanation is energy you could have used to build. Every defense is time you could have used to progress. Every performance is focus you could have directed toward results. And at some point, you have to decide, do you want to be understood or do you want to be undeniable? Because you can't have both. People who are undeniable don't explain themselves. They just are. And the world adjusts, not because they demanded it, but because results speak louder than words ever could. You want people to respect you? Stop explaining yourself. You want people to see you differently? Stop defending your choices. You want people to take you seriously? Stop performing for their approval. Just move. In silence. With certainty. With the kind of internal authority that doesn't need external validation. and watch what happens. Not immediately. This isn't magic. This isn't some quick fix where you stop explaining yourself and suddenly everyone respects you. But over time, as you build in private, as you move without announcing, as you become without performing, people notice, not because you ask them to, but because they can't help it. Because sovereignty has a presence that performance never will. Because real power is felt, not announced. Because people who don't need you are magnetic in a way that people who do never are. That's the paradox. The moment you stop needing people to see you is the moment they start paying attention. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you become validating. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you become worth listening to. But you have to go first. You have to stop before they do. You have to become internally sovereign before the external world reflects it back to you. And most people can't do that. Most people need proof before they believe. They need to see results before they commit. They need external validation before they develop internal certainty. But that's backwards. Internal certainty creates external results, not the other way around. You have to know you're powerful before the world treats you like you are. You have to believe in your vision before anyone else does. You have to move with authority before anyone gives you permission. That's the work. And it's lonely because you're doing it alone. Not because no one wants to help you, but because no one can. This is internal work. And internal work is always done in isolation. But that isolation is where you find yourself. That's where you discover what you're actually made of. That's where you build the kind of strength that can't be shaken by external circumstances. Because it's not based on circumstances. It's based on who you are. And who you are doesn't change based on who's watching. It doesn't change based on who approves. It doesn't change based on who understands. It just is. Solid, certain, sovereign. And once you have that, once you've built that level of internal strength, nothing can touch you. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because your value isn't dependent on how the world treats you anymore. You know who you are. You know what you're building. You know where you're going. And you don't need anyone to confirm it. That's freedom. That's power. That's the advantage of being unseen. And that's where you are right now. At the edge of a decision that most people never make. The decision to stop waiting. Stop explaining. Stop needing the world to see you before you see yourself. You can keep performing if you want. You can keep seeking validation. Keep defending your choices. Keep exhausting yourself trying to make people understand. But you already know where that leads. It leads to more of the same. More frustration. More disappointment. More years spent building a life that requires constant external approval to feel legitimate. Or you can choose something different. You can choose silence, not the silence of defeat, not the silence of giving up, the silence of someone who knows exactly what they're doing and doesn't need to announce it, the silence of someone who's done asking for permission, the silence of someone who's finally become sovereign. And here's what nobody tells you about that choice. It's not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Every day, you'll be tempted to explain yourself. Every day, you'll want validation. Every day, there will be moments when you want someone to see what you're building and tell you it matters. And every day, you'll have to choose yourself instead. You'll have to choose silence over explanation. You'll have to choose certainty over approval. You'll have to choose internal sovereignty over external validation. And most days, it won't feel like anything special. Most days, it will just feel like living. Moving through your day with quiet authority. Making decisions without needing consensus. Building something real without needing applause. But over time, something accumulates. Strength, clarity, power. The kind that can't be given to you and can't be taken away. The kind that exists regardless of who's watching. The kind that makes you dangerous in the most controlled sense of the word. Dangerous because you can't be manipulated by the need for approval. Dangerous because you can't be controlled by the fear of judgment. Dangerous because you move with a level of internal certainty that most people never develop. And the people who recognize that in you, the people who operate on that same frequency, they won't need you to explain it. They'll just know. And the people who don't recognize it, the people who still need validation and approval and constant reassurance, they were never your people anyway. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need to understand yourself, and you do. You've always known this truth, even when you tried to ignore it. You've always felt the weight of performing for people who weren't watching. You've always known that explaining yourself weakens you. You've always sensed that real power lives in silence. Now you just have to live accordingly. No announcement, no declaration, no explaining to people why you're different now. Just different. Moving differently. Choosing differently. Existing differently in a way that doesn't need their understanding to be real. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, let it. If that makes some people question you, let them. If that makes some people walk away, let them go. Because the version of you that needed them isn't who you are anymore. And the version of you that you're becoming doesn't need anyone who doesn't already understand. This is it. This is the shift. Not someday. Right now. The moment you stop reading this and go back to your life, you have a choice. You can go back to explaining, defending, performing, or you can move in silence, with clarity, with certainty, with absolute internal authority. No one will applaud that choice. No one will see it happening. No one will validate that you're doing the right thing. But you'll know. And that's all that matters. Because you're not doing this for them anymore. You're doing this for you. And the version of you that you're building in silence, the one that doesn't need validation, the one that moves with sovereign authority, that version is already here. You just have to stop performing long enough to let it exist.